I guess like whatever form our work eventually takes, like Steph and I's work,
Mm-hmm.
I do think like it is going to involve um, like some sort of shifts from what we're doing now with like a close reading strategy
Mm-hmm.
to um, to kind of like an application of some kind, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
and I think that application might take different forms, but I think it would still help me to hear or to think about like you know like what that might look in writing as one possibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Give me a moment to think about. Okay. I'm going to share my screen really quick. Sorry, hold on one second. This is sort of a sidebar, but I immediately, immediately was started to think about like some sort of journaling for Steph, just like what she raised about her family and the discussion you had at the end. The rest of my tags, I'll let you take a look at them later. But anyway, but I just started thinking like that's not a sort of clearly not like an end project, but I started to wonder if her having some time to sort of make those connections more informally in writing might build some writing fluency, and even if the journaling is also her poetry, but like facilitating sort of that writing to build towards pulling some of perhaps what she writes in more of a journal format for some project or whatever the thing ends up being at the end. Anyway, while I'm in here, I'm just going to scroll through and remind myself of, just reminded here of her engagement. Oh, and I really like the explicit naming you used, like bringing her in. I saw multiple times you bringing her in to sort of into the know around sort of literary technique and sort of the stuff of sort of the academic world and of sort of English literary devices, but really subtly, like when you were explaining why he doesn't use quotations, and you add those in, it just felt really really natural, especially now that you're talking about how she feels dismissive of sort of her input and feels some disconnect in sort of her role in making meaning of text. It just felt like you were doing a really good job bridging reading intervention practices with engaging her in relationship and making her feel confident. Let's see. Okay. All right. So now what I was really going to share. Distracted by that. So so you mentioned some interest in thinking about triceps. And then I have one other thing I was going to raise as a possibility. So, let's talk for a bit about what you had in mind when you raised possibly shifting to triceps.
Yeah, I remember from over the summer when we read I think it was the Justin Torres piece together,
Mm-hmm.
and and had kind of like moved from up down both Y to then like thinking about triceps, and I guess like for me, like I think it was a very intuitive, like natural move from one to the other. But I felt like, um, I've spent a ton of time with texts and have internalized like a ton of strategies. Like what does it feel? What are the steps for someone, or what does it feel like for someone who, is having a lot of, success with Up Down Both Y, and now is asked to kind of like apply it to something. Like, I guess I'm thinking a lot of like, if Steph and I had that session, and then, uh, if I had like without any instruction or movements, just then asked her to kind of like write an analytical paper about, just kind of like gender dynamics in Dominican households or something. And I feel like that would be like, well, what are you talking about?
Right.
So I guess I was wondering if like triceps might be a good bridge tool. And
say more about that. Did you have ideas in mind about how you would do that, or is it just more of like the initial wondering?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought is to just kind of to like break it down and probably like choose the ones that might be most pertinent for Drown, and then just spend, probably just like.
Are there some that stand out right now to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think like ruptures, I think, are an interesting one. I think like there's a lot of tension. We do have like repeating characters, so like characterizations. Yeah, and so I'm wondering if that might be something to start building in into our sessions, as something to like. I think like now that she's comfortable with Up Down Both Y, I'm wondering if that's something we can start thinking about like near the end of our sessions, or as we're reading. Yeah, because I don't want her to be overwhelmed with thinking of, trying to be reading for all of these things simultaneously. But maybe if we can, if we start off saying that like we're gonna be, like holding rupture in the back of our minds as we're reading today. But yeah, that's as far as I
Okay.
kind of.
And are you thinking that, so like the prompts that are currently at the end of the sort of Up Down Y sheets as you structured them, which I really like, by the way, I think it is great at giving students access to practicing using that. Would it perhaps shift more to one of these? Because you were talking earlier about not wanting to just repeat those questions at the end that you feel like are the questions you're launching with.
Yeah, and partially because I've had two students be like, "You're asking me the same question." But yeah, and I think this might be like a good, like I think I'd like to start including it. I feel like I don't want it to take the place of those broader questions, because I feel like I don't want to, because I feel like there's all this rich interpretive work that happens with Up Down Both Y.
Agreed.
And I don't want to like then immediately put that into like now like fit all of that into these literary devices.
Sure. Yep.